Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby Pod. I'm Karl with you for another week on RugbyPass.com and Sky Sport, joined of course by James Parsons in the Auckland studio as ever, and down, well actually in another Auckland studio, we've traded in Bryn Hall, we've upgraded big time.
Heavily to
the
That'd be like Kevy taking my spot.
to the one and only Dan Carter. Dan, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
No worries, thanks guys, good to be on here. I do feel bad for Bryn because he does such an exceptional job, but I know if he was on here he'd just want to talk stories, off-field stories more than rugby. So I remember doing something for the Crusaders. We were talking about high performance, leadership, what it meant to be a true Crusader man, and then at the end I threw to some of the players to ask questions, and Bryn was straight, yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, wants to know something about 9 and 10 combinations or communication. He was like, "Who's the most famous person you've met?" That's all he wanted to know.
and what was the answer to that question? Was you happy with it?
I was tossing up a time in Monaco when, I was on the Tag Heuer boat with Tom Brady and Bella Hadid.
Yeah.
And I went for Bella because she actually saw me grab a beer out of the fridge on the boat, and she's like, "I can't let you drink by yourself," so she joined me and had a beer with me.
Outstanding. That's so good.
That's a pretty good yarn.
Bryn's got this perfect image that you've just ruined.
We have a basic rule.
Brady, but he didn't have a beer with me, so I was a bit disappointed in that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, we've got a rule of not giving Bryn big ups on this show.
Yeah.
You got to tear into him or remind him about Artie Savi running over the top of him. Outside of that, nothing positive about Bryn. At least not for the next 20 minutes while we got Dan, right? So Dan, thank you very much for joining us. One of the main reasons we've got you on the show this week is you're undertaking a new part in your career, a philanthropic side of your career with UNICEF. And you're going to do something quite different, something typically you, to start off your DC-10 fund to help children throughout the Pacific. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, just want to know a little bit about this. You know, when you're transitioning out of rugby, it's actually quite challenging when your sole purpose is to be the best rugby player you possibly can be, and that's been my purpose for the last 18 years. And then having retired last year, I'm still repurposing and using this time to figure out exactly what the next chapter of my life looks like. But at the same time, I look around and realize that I'm really grateful to have the life that my family and I live, and a lot of that is off the back of sport and rugby in particular. So I want to use this time of transition to use sort of my platform and sport to give back to people in need, and in particular children. So I get really inspired about helping the next generation or kids in need. So I've been an ambassador for UNICEF for about 7 years, and I've seen all the incredible work they do for kids all over the world. There was a part of me that always wanted to do more, but with your rugby schedule, you just don't have those opportunities. So in this time of transition, I thought I'd set up my own fund, named it the DC-10 Fund, and I partnered with UNICEF. So as an ambassador for UNICEF, you don't always get to choose which project that you support. So with setting up the DC-10 Fund, I could handpick the UNICEF projects that I was really passionate about and wanted to shine the light on, help, support, advocate for. So I launched that a couple of weeks ago, and we're focusing on a project called WASH Project in the Pacific. We were providing clean water, sanitation, and hygiene to kids there. Basically, sanitation-related diseases are one of the leading causes of death to children under 5 years old. So in order for these children to have the best start in life, they're on the back foot already just by having something that we take for granted here in New Zealand is access to clean water. So that's a real focus for me. I do a little bit of work as well in Tonga after the traumatic events of the volcanic eruption up there, and we're also doing some work around child's rights here in Aotearoa as well. So that's a little bit about the DC-10 Fund in partnership with UNICEF, but I thought, no better way to kick things off than with a fundraising event, which is just around the corner. So tried to marry up two things I really enjoy. One that I've just talked about, giving back to children, and the other one is kicking goals, something I've always done ever since I was a little kid.
Can we talk through, you haven't gone small in terms of the challenge. How did you come about coming up with that?
Oh, to be honest, it's something I've just had in my mind for a couple of years now. When you finish playing rugby, you train, you keep busy, you keep fit, but it's actually really tough to train when you don't have an end goal. And with rugby, you've always got a goal, so you have real focus in your training, and you're testing yourself physically and mentally week in, week out. And I missed that when I retired. So I was like, okay, well, it's time to test myself physically and mentally, and to do it in something that I love and something that's much bigger than me. It's helping, make an impact to children in need. So I thought, righto, if we're going to do it properly. So see how many goals I can kick in 24 hours at Eden Park, or to raise money and help provide clean water for the children in need in the Pacific.
You said physically there. Is the strategy all off the left, or are we going to utilise the right?
I've been training for about 7 months, and my first session, and I hadn't kicked for a couple of months before then. And as I was driving to the training field, I thought, right, okay, what's the Guinness Book of Records? Let's have a look. Let's have a crack at that. And there's actually no record. There's only a record for 12 hours kicked by a team of 15 people. And it was around 1,800 kicks in 12 hours. So I broke that down. It's around 150 kicks an hour. I was like, I'll give it a crack, see how long it takes me to kick 150 kicks. This is after not kicking for 2 months. I did my 150 in about 45 minutes. Quad strain, blisters all over the heels. And I was like, what are you up to? Right, let's just reassess where we're at here. So the next 3 weeks, I ended up kicking off my wrong foot, and actually felt really comfortable after that 3 weeks kicking with my wrong foot. So I was like, okay, well, I need to use both feet, and I'm not going to go for a Guinness Book of Records. I'm actually going to try and have a bit more of a reasonable target. So I decided 1,598 successful kicks, which is how many test points I scored in my All Black career. So I broke that down. It was about 66 kicks an hour, so just over a kick a minute for 24 hours. I was like, right, that's my target. It's nice to have something to work towards. So I've been working towards that throughout my training the last 7 months.
How does that work over the space of, let's say, you break it down into hour slots where you kick for 40, rest for 20? How does it work through that 24 hours of kicking?
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. 40 minutes on, 20 off. So it's taken a bit of strategy, and I initially got some good training programs from Ash Draper, the blues physio.
One of the greats.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He loves drum and bass, and so do I. So we often had to do a rehab and things to put a drum and bass. But so he helped me initially before he had to shoot off to Queenstown with the blues. And then I've had George Duncan as well, the muscle specialist with the All Blacks. He's been keeping me on track as well. So I've had some good help, but I can kick 66 kicks in about 20 minutes if I really wanted to, but I want to do it sort of, long and slower. So I thought I'd drag that out to about 40 minutes, and then I'd use the other 20 minutes to refuel, go to the bathroom, talk to some of the guests that might be there, the volunteers, and just kind of freshen up before I do it all over again for 24 hours straight. So to be honest, I'm going into the unknown, so I don't really know. It's all good having a plan and strategy until it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're tired and hungry and you just want to get the hell out of there.
Now, before we carry on, you can watch this on Sky streaming. You can watch it on Dan's website. What's your website, Dan?
Yeah, dancarter.com/Kickathon for all the information, the live stream, where all the funds are going to, how to donate. There's little giveaways like a pair of my retirement boots, my book that you can win once you donate. So all the information's on the website.
And for people who couldn't handle watching you kick for 24 hours, you've got a few mates coming along to help you out.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, so I kick off Thursday, the 7th at 7 p.m. And then at 8 o'clock, I've called on as many ex-Black Ferns and All Blacks as I could that played number 10 or kick goals for their teams. So the likes of Leon McDonald. We've got actually Bodie's going to come down, Stephen Donald, who I might have to keep there in case I get injured, and he can do a miraculous saviour like he did back in 2011.
You got a tight shirt for him?
I'm sure he'll bring his own. As long as he brings some white bait, that'll be handy if he comes along there. Grant Fox is coming along, but he assures me that he cannot kick. His knees are absolutely buggered. Same as Anna Richards as well, but she's told me her knees are no good as well. So if anything, it's given me some inspiration to make sure I kick while I still can, because if anything like those guys, there'll be one day where I can't.
You'll be leaving this thing in a wheelchair, maybe. Who knows? 40 this month.
Honestly, it's not my happy place. When I'm kicking goals, it's like meditation to me. I just absolutely love it. I know I won't be able to do it one day, but as soon as the trainings started getting 4, 5, 6 hours long, it's no longer meditation. It's actually bloody hard work.
4, 5, 6 hours long. What time do you start? Is it just through the middle of the day, or have you done overnight goal kicking?
Between school hours. So last week was the end of my big 3-week block. So I'd kick 3 sessions a week on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And one of those sessions would be a long session of 4, 5, or last week I did a 6-hour session. And I'd kick 2 hours worth of kicks in that 1 hour. So I said 66 kicks an hour for my target. So I do 132 kicks an hour. So I did that last week, so that's just under 800 kicks in 6 hours. So, yeah, that was me down at College Rifles the other day for 6 hours. So it was quite repetitive.
That is hard work.
Now, I know you're a fellow coathead there, Dizzy. Who's taking your fancy in terms of the form team and Super at the moment?
Oh, I absolutely love it. Obviously, follow the Crusaders, with my heart, had some good interaction with the Blues when you were there. So, I follow those two teams. But still anyone's game. That's what I love about the competition this year. The Highlanders have had some tough games, but any one of those teams could be there. I don't think the Crusaders have hit their straps yet. They'll be disappointed with their game in the weekend. Their set piece, very un-Crusader-like. They just weren't controlling the ball as well as too many turnovers, didn't hold on to the ball for long periods of time, didn't put enough pressure on the Highlanders, so they'll be really disappointed with that. But hard to go past them when you start getting to the pressure stages of the competition.
Yeah, 100%. And talking about pressure, and sorry to take away from your kickathon there, but I'm interested to know, back in 2009, you were obviously part of the team that came off the back of 2 losses on the end of your tour, but then must have turned a corner there to build towards 2011. Where do you think the key points of growth this year for the All Blacks?
Yeah, it was a really disappointing year in 2009, but a lot of the work and the success that we had in 2011 and 2015 was off the back of the learnings that we got in 2007. So we learned that we needed to spend a lot more time on our mental strength, the mental side of the game, because we weren't able to handle pressure. There was a lot of talk about the All Blacks being chokers come World Cup time, and as soon as we got put under pressure, we didn't perform. So we spent a lot of work with Kerry Evans, Gilbert Anoka, working on our mental strength and actually walking towards pressure, and that really helped us, even though we had a blip in 2009 where the Springboks absolutely dominated us in 3 test matches, but we managed to turn things around 2010, 2011. But what I shouldn't be saying this, but what I like is in 2019, that would have really hurt a lot of the Crusaders, and in particular the experienced Crusaders. Crusaders, the All Blacks. Sorry, I was still doing Super Rugby. So 2019 would have really hurt. So in 2015, 2011, there were players in that World Cup squad that knew what it was like to lose at a Rugby World Cup. So there was still a lot of hurt, a lot of learnings from those experiences. You go to 2019, there was no one in the squad that had been part of a losing World Cup squad that only had success with the likes of 2011, 2015. So for 2023, you're going to be players there that were there in 2019 that have that hurt, that have that drive, that have that desperation. So I see it as a positive. I know you probably shouldn't that we didn't win that last one, but as long as they use those learnings and the experience and that drive that really hurt that they went through in Japan, then it's going to be really beneficial for them.
On the flip side of that, Dan, you look at the French now, and they are absolutely humming. And they didn't come off a World Cup where things went, they were awful at that World Cup. And now they're absolutely humming. They've got some young players who are dead set superstars. You spent some time over there. What do you make of this squad and where they're going, the French team? Because right now they're the favourites according to everyone.
Yeah, they're. I'm really impressed, and I really enjoy watching the French at the moment. I always knew that they had the talent. They've always had the talent. Even playing there, that it just reconfirmed what I already knew about French rugby is they're talented and they can beat anyone on their team. What they did lack was consistency, and they've shown that. There's still a part of me that's thinking maybe that last game at the Six Nations they might trip over because there's a little bit of pressure. They're expected to win. They're the favourites, but they didn't. They played extremely, extremely well, which to me goes to show that they've got their culture sorted. Yeah. They've got these young guys that are in there and they're playing for something bigger than themselves. What that is, who knows? But they've got an incredible setup in terms of their culture, and they're young. They're playing with such freedom. They're playing with passion, and they're the form team at World Rugby at the moment. Whether that continues, we're still 18 months away. Anything can happen in that time, but they are moving in the right direction. But World Cup rugby is completely different to any rugby. Six Nations, Rugby Championship, club footy, because to win it, you have to play 7 games straight in a row. Tournament rugby, it's very different. Yes, Six Nations is a tournament, but 2 games on, 1 off. It's different. So things are going to happen in a World Cup that don't normally happen with referee calls, injuries, pressure. So it's how the team at the tournament best works together and solves those problems and grows as the tournament goes and is able to perform in those pressure situations. It's going to win it. That yes, they're the form side, but I don't think that they've had those really big moments. I think they've got the team to do that. I think that just makes it so much more exciting to have a team like France performing and also playing the style that they are and having success off that as well. It's exciting to see.
100%.
I suppose the key to that is Dupont. Is he the best player in the world right now, do you reckon? He is insane.
Oh, seriously, just to back up the season that he had last year, World Player of the Year, subconsciously you could relax a little bit in a situation like that, getting all the accolades, and maybe have a little bit of a slump. Even the added pressure of having the captaincy. There was a part of me that thought, captain, a player that plays with such freedom, he's probably not that suited to do the captaincy role, but took it all in his stride, continued to perform. He performs at club level, he performs at international level, and he just backs up great performances week in, week out. So he's world class.
Just before we let you go, Dan, we've got a bit of a quick fire round from our producer. Just wanted to go through a few things, which I'm sure you've answered at a million dinners, doing speaking engagements, etc. But, the world would want to know. Best player ever played alongside?
Richie McCaw.
That was a pretty easy guess, yeah.
Oh, mate, his actions was some of the best leadership that I've ever seen. It would just inspire you being right next to him and seeing it firsthand. I was like, okay, right, I want to do the same.
Yeah. Best player you've ever played against?
So many. It's hard to pinpoint one. It was early in my career, probably because I just held him in such high regard. I had a huge amount of respect for him. It was Johnny Wilkinson. He was an absolute student of the game, and it was a wild, windy test match down in Wellington. I was on the bench, and I hadn't played a test match for the All Black, and he just took that game, and as a 10 that wants to control a game, I've never seen anything like it. And I got the best seats in the house on the bench. There's part of me was going, man, do I really want to get on here? Because he's just completely dominating this game. Thankfully, I didn't, and played my Test debut the following week, which was a much better game to remember. But I remember sitting there going, if I ever do play 10 or ball play, because I was playing 12 a lot then, this is how you need to control a game. So I had a huge amount of respect for him and love playing against him.
That's amazing. Best team you've ever played with in? The
best team?
The best team you've been in.
Oh, far out. That's another tough one. My mind automatically goes back to the 2015 team to create history, probably more so for me because it was such a special moment to finish my All Black career on such a high, helping the team win back-to-back World Cups, first All Black team to win a World Cup outside of New Zealand. It was a pretty special and unique team, and the fact that 7 guys that played 100 Test matches, or close to 100 Test matches, all finished, some good mates of mine on that night as well. I automatically go back to that 2015 team.
And best team you've ever played against?
Springboks, they were quite dominant around, obviously they won in 2007 the World Cup, 2009. There was a real Blues Bulls style to their play back then. They were dominating at Super Rugby level as well, the Bulls back then. And South African rugby was at such a force, it was brutal. Every time you'd play against the Boks, you knew that you're going to be sore until Wednesday or Thursday. It's like I had a target on me. Victor Matfield, Bucky's Balther, Schalkberger, PSBs, they were big, athletic human beings, and they were really dominant in that time.
Yeah, PSBs was a stud, wasn't he? That guy was just like otherworldly athletic.
Big unit.
They'd pull one hand out of the back of the scrum and just come, his eyes would light up at a little number 10 like myself, and I was like, okay, here we go.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks so much for your time, Dan. All the best on Thursday for the Kickathon for DC10 Fund with UNICEF. We really appreciate your time, and all the best for the future.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your support, and obviously Sky Sport for covering the event as well. It's exciting. I should probably, not sure whether to go get some sleep or go down to the training paddock and do a few final touches of kicking some goals. But all the support is really appreciated.
No problem. Oh, you can go read those leather-bound books in the background there. You and Ron Burgundy.
They're my own books, actually. I published last year. I just sit down and read about myself pretty much. If you're up to something to put yourself to sleep, then I know a pretty good book, and it's my one.
Go well, Dizzy, mate.
Awesome, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
So now that the GOAT's gone, we're going to bring back our usual man, Bryn Hall. Of course, Bryn's probably won more Super Rugby titles, Jipper, than Dan Carter along the way. So, he's got his accolades.
He's won more titles than most of the greats. Maybe we could consider you a great.
One of the great line-out throwers, maybe?
Oh, no. I don't think so. I don't think so, guys. I think the fact of how many kind of awards and everything he's got, mate, I'm just a humble guy that was unfortunate to miss the interview. Would have been a great interview, so you boys would have asked some good questions.
But you can watch it Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
Or on YouTube, anytime you like. Just go to the Rugby Pass YouTube page. But let's
and actually Spotify, don't forget Spotify. Don't forget Spotify, Ross.
Listen on Spotify, absolutely.
People listeners.
Yeah. So if you've missed it, you can catch it everywhere. Chances are Bryn is watching it at the same time as you. Concurrent stream. Have you got a bone to pick with Brynner about his line-out technique?
Oh, well, maybe not Brynner, maybe the line-out caller. The double slip to the front could have been a good option, not to the middle of the line-out to throw over a Highlander. But I made a little bit of a joke on Insta, and I tell you what, it fell flat. I said I taught you well, and then about 1 million people messaged me going, "Do you realise he lost the line-out?" I was like, "Yeah, that was the joke, but mate, you got some work-ons. You may have 5 titles under your belt, but line-out throwing is not in your future."
Sadly, it's not, Jip. You'd think all the time that we spent together, we would have been able to throw a dart, But that was really, really funny, that scenario, actually. Obviously, Cody Taylor had been sent off, but I just had no idea that I was going to be able to do the line out. We'd actually talked about what if moments if our hookers went on. Us nines were going to be the people that were going to throw it in, but we talked about it a little bit around what it looked like. But I tell you what, Jip, I give you forwards. I will never ever talk badly about a line out throw because Scott Barrett just confused the hell out of me, to be honest. that whole time. So it was a double slip with a look at the front and then get it up and then make sure you look at your eyes. And I was just, Dallas McLeod was actually our ball boy, and I've just gone to him and I've just looked, hell, here we go, boy.
So, I mean... carry on.
And sorry, I'll finish up. And thank God, Zach Gallagher on his debut made a nice hardball get to be able to get the ball back. Because if they went 80 metres, I could imagine that I'd probably be saying that guy, that idiot that threw the ball, lost us the game.
It's always the hooker that gets blamed, mate. Get used to that.
Yeah.
But before we carry on, what the hell is a slip and a double slip? I mean, Bryn learnt on the weekend, but what about the rest of us?
I think the easiest way to explain it is when you see bodies leaving the line out to create space for others to move into or move back to, that's a slip.
That's a slip.
And you can be a slip forward or a slip back.
Right. And so, as far as you're concerned, Brynner, how did this play out? You saw that Cody was off. Yeah, this is for people who didn't catch it on the weekend, Crusaders, Highlanders, which you guys went on to win that game. But towards the end of the game, you're without a hooker. And what happens from there? How does it play out?
Well, ideally it would have been cometh the hour, cometh the man, but obviously I wasn't the man to do it. Cody got sent off, and then I was actually running. Sorry, not Cody. Apologies.
Cody couldn't come back on because he'd been substituted.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, this is going to flow into my story. Charlotte had been sent off, and then I'm running towards the line out, not knowing anything. Then Cody's on the sideline just screaming at me with a few nice words, might I say, that I was going to be throwing in the ball, sort it out, and make sure you know what you're doing. And I was like, rightio. And so had about 10, 15 seconds to try and get myself together, and then Scooter went through that option, and unfortunately I just couldn't throw it. I think I threw it to his hips. If it actually ended up being a good throw, it would have just been thrown straight to his hips. So
don't worry, mate.
Thankfully,
forwards and hookers demand about 300 reps a week. So the fact that you had to do it in 15 seconds with no practice, you did all right.
I would imagine that would have been a real shocker if you had a court session. Like, that would have been an absolute night ender at a court session.
Oh, probably will be, Ross. But if you actually get I think the legend of Marty Banks, he actually did a photo, and I think Jip, you sent it through on our WhatsApp. How nervous did I look? I don't know. I thought I looked quite confident over the ball, but geez, I looked nervous. And in 1980s, like, foot out, and then being a big lob throw from Manaki Savamrika to see it easily.
Mate,
yeah.
The amount of halfbacks over my years that said to me, it's not even that hard. But when you get under those bright lights and you got to put it on the money, she's a lot harder than you think.
Were you happy with the technique, the foot placement?
No, it was dreadful. That's why I went straight onto the post of Legend of Marty Banks and thought I'd be facetious. But as I said, it fell flat with a few customers.
Despite that, Bryn, let's talk a little bit about that game. Let's stop giving you crap for, how long was that, about 10 minutes?
He's had a tough start to the show. Desi was into him, now we're into him.
It is pretty tough. But you guys, you got the win against a Highlanders team that is now, 6-0, or 0-6. Are they as bad as it seems? Or are they a side that's almost there?
Oh, look, I think they're there or thereabouts, and look, they're probably walking away from that game thinking that it's the one that got away. If we look at the second half stats, man, it was just, to be honest, all we did in that second half was really tackle, because due to the fact of our errors, whether it be with our line out or just not getting the right knock-ons, jackals, penalties, we had 11 opportunities in that second half that we made mistakes, and then the Highlanders were able to pounce on that and been able to put us under a lot of pressure. And thankfully, our scramble defence came in a really good time. There were a lot of breaks through Falau Whakatava when he came on, who I thought was outstanding in when he came on, being able to really rip us around their hard defence. But to be honest, probably the crucial moments were Sevu Reese's steals in those second halves. I think crucial times in those halves, he was able to get steals, and Will Jordan the week before in our back three got 3 steals, and then Sevu Reese on the weekend had 3 turnovers as well. So we're getting a lot of gains out of our turnover game, especially defensively. It's been a big work on through us with Tams this year. Last year we didn't get a lot of turnovers in, whether that be with the Jackals or hunting or going through and flooding through. But this year we seem to be able to get a lot of pay out of our turnovers. And to be honest, in crucial moments defensively, those kind of moments are winning us games, especially on the weekend.
Folau, I think we've been waiting for him to bust open a game like that for a little while, haven't we?
Yeah, well, he's done it for a number of years, I suppose, with the Magpies, and we saw it in patches last season. But let's not underestimate the injuries come back from. It is seriously challenging, and not to bring in NRL, but the great Joey Johns made comment the other day around ACLs, and when he had his, he just never felt comfortable to step again, or you second guessed everything when you do a knee. I've never done a knee, so I wouldn't know what it's like, but I just thought, to see him play the way he did, as in Folau the other night, was pretty special, even though at times the old pest that is Ethan Blackadder was smothering him. He got a few wins as well.
Yeah, Ethan was on fire again on the weekend, wasn't he?
Oh, he was my player of the round. I just thought, I think it was 24 tackles. There was a lot of, it was a tough form 15 to pick, but man, if it wasn't him just hitting back and forth into a ruck to try and disrupt a box kick from the Highlanders, he's sprinting back to run an escort line. He's making a number of tackles back to back. He's just one of those players that you can't take. Almost like because of his hair or something, you just always seen him involved in play. And I just think that loose forward trio is going to be seriously hard to pick, or the 6 loose forwards they go with in that All Blacks side.
Even the loose forward trio in the Crusaders side, I mean, wow, the commitment that you see every weekend from Blackadder and Christie and those guys. Like it is.
Yeah, and then Matera is there as well, and Cullen Grace is starting to come back into some form, so a healthy problem to have, because it is probably the point of difference in a lot of these derbies at the moment is that breakdown and the ability to get those crucial steals, although we're seeing most of it coming from the back three of the Crusaders and Will Jordan and Sevu Reece. Tom Christie and co are getting plenty as well.
Although Christie got hammered by Frizzell at one point. That guy at the moment. Wow.
He was another, like the 6th position was really hard to pick in the form 15, because I thought Bo Shear went really well, and Shannon Frizzell, he's in seriously good form. So it's been challenging. Who would be a selector?
Yeah, that's pretty difficult. Well, maybe we should jump straight into our dream team before we look at these other games, then, since we're already talking about it at the moment.
My apologies.
No, well, let's just go there. Let's flip it over.
We'll go to Bryn first.
Bryn, what is the big change to this week to your dream team? Now, just remember, before we go there, the dream team you can get on rugbypass.com. It is your chance to go and have a look at all of the different players, choose your players week by week. You can then earn the chance to win a subscription to Rugby Pass by being almost bang on the money with what everyone else thinks. And at the end of the season, if you're the most consistent selector alongside everybody who's done it, then you unfortunately will come on this show.
Stop playing it down, mate. It's a real treat.
It's massive. It's massive. So with that said, Brynner, you mate, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, it was really tough to pick a form 15 this week. I think especially in the loose forward trio job, so I'll be interested to see who you go with in there. But to start things off, I've gone Fletcher Newell. Was great for us on the weekend. A really good timely turnover, and was really robust and busy in his first start, second start for the year. And then I've gone Curdy Eklund. You can't go past a hat trick. I think, Jipper, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the first time there's been a hat trick from a Blues forward since Mark Carter.
Yeah, I think in 96, since 96.
Yeah, 96.
And they both wore the head tape. So, must be something in it. That's where I went wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I went wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then I've gone Joe Moody, who I thought was good on the weekend. I actually had Angus Tarvale floating around there as well, but I've gone Joe Moody with how dominant our scrum was on the weekend. Then I've gone Tucker, Scott Barrett at 5. I went Ethan Blackadder at 6. Man, it was really hard not to be able to have Shannon Frizzell in that team, because he's been immense the last couple of weeks. And I know the Highlanders haven't been getting their results, but he's been a massive person that's been playing consistently and at a high level. And then I've gone Sam Cane. He was a man possessed on the weekend, and there's a lot of people with Papali'i, the likes of Tom Christie, and even then Artie you can switch to as well. It's hotly contested 7 at the moment. I've got Artie Severe on the weekend. Peter Gus, he's a mention. I've got Aaron Smith, a close whakatava. I was wanting to put him on, but I thought Aaron Smith, and the way he probably set up that first part of the game with his box kicks and his ability to be able to game manage, was really good. I've gone Josh Ioane at 10, who I thought played well for the Chiefs. I've gone David Havili and Leonard Brown in the midfield. I wanted to put Caleb Clark on the left wing, but for the fact of that red card and probably getting Sinbin, it probably just held him off. And so I put Lester Fainganuku. I know he's played centre, but I needed to put him on the park, and I think the way that he's playing at centre, he's going to be a guy that we're going to talk about when they're All Blacks being in that possibility in that team. Got Sevi Reece for his breakdown work that I talked about, and I actually went Narawa at fullback to finish off, who I thought was impressive for the Chiefs on the weekend.
Not far, not too far away, to be fair. I went Moody at 1, Eklund at 2 as well. I went with Gus Tarvel at tight head. I just thought the way he scrummed on the weekend, and then his usual work rate, he is a level above most tight heads in terms of the work rate and his ability to get around the track. But when he scrums like that, he becomes a real force. So I thought it was one of his best games of the season. I went with the McFunnell-Lord combo because he went off early, McFunnell, but he was into everything, man. He was doing back-to-back efforts, left, right and centre, and I thought Lord carried that on. Jed Holloway from the Waratahs, he's been chipping away for a while, and he got a little meat pie on the weekend, and the Waratahs really hit their straps. Not only was his meat pie, he put a nice little ball in behind that set up Hooper's try, so I thought he was solid. I went for the exact same loose forward trio, and I will second your comments on Sam Cane. I mean, some of his defensive hits, he just looks a man possessed at the moment, and a man just loving being out on the field. I went Aaron Smith as well because I thought his kicking game set that up. They really challenge you in that contested kicking game and forcing you guys into errors there. Josh Ioane at 10. Could have put Gats. I think he was really clutch and bringing that game home. But, and Stevie P as well had two solid performances, but Josh got the nod just because he was sharp. Corey Evans, 12 for the Blues. On sort of starting debut, new to the scene, I thought he was pretty formidable in that second 5 spot, and I'm looking forward to him maybe potentially getting more runs, against some of the New Zealand oppositions. ALB at 13, went Wes Hooson at 11, Sevi Reece at 14, and James O'Connor at 15. I know he played at 10, but he controlled that game really well against the Brumbies, who hadn't lost before the weekend.
You got to make it fit.
Got to make him fit,
and
mate.
That means changing the rules sometimes.
Big O'Connor fan. He's been in my team most weeks, but he's playing good footy.
Absolutely. The person who came closest this week and will be winning the prize is Thomas Cassie. So congratulations, Thomas. I wrote down 2 S's. I hope it's not Thomas Casey, but I think it's Thomas Cassie. Now, look, on the weekend, I suppose the big talking point was the red and the yellow cards. We had 4 reds, 4 yellows. If the refs were at the Oscars, Will Smith would have walked off stage and straight into the changing rooms. We wouldn't have seen him again.
No.
Caleb Clark was the big one that everyone was talking about. He went up, he got the leg that caught Tomasi Anosio. It was a legitimate attempt, but seen as a reckless action because of the way that he then went and hit a player in the head, who then found themselves going off for a concussion check. So what do we make of the way that played out? Are you happy with the red card and how that was? Yeah,
look, I think it's fair, and I think it's fair on the basis that the refs have to start at red when there's impact with the head. And it's probably a little bit biased coming from a guy who had to leave the game because of concussion and still have my challenges to today. And Caleb made the choice to charge by leaping, so he's put himself in a reckless position that he can no longer move. But it's at no fault of the player that chip and chases. And I think the difference is a lot of people have said, what about the collision in the air? Well, that's a total different part of the game, where both players are making the decision and there's responsibilities. Here is just a charge down, and Caleb was the one that jumped in the air, and it was reckless, and there were no mitigating circumstances. So in terms of the refs, framework that they have to work through, they had no choice. And if these aren't reds, at what point do we change behaviours to get, we constantly talk about concussion, we constantly talk about player safety and that. If we don't see these red cards or yellow cards, how are we going to change the players' behaviours to make sure that our game's safer? How then, Bryn, could Caleb be technically more proficient in order to not get the red card, considering, he went up for a proper charge down, it wasn't a fake one. It's definitely unlucky. Unlucky. How could he do that better and not cop the guy and then cop the red?
I think that's a pretty good point that Jip brings up. It's really unlucky. Like, you want him to charge down the ball and being able to, that's what you do. So, I understand obviously when 2 guys are going for the ball, it's a little bit different. But in that kind of scenario there, he's put himself in a situation, which is a lot of when it comes into these red cards, it's the players' ability to be able to be accountable for what their actions are, what they're doing. And so that kind of example with Caleb, like, you can say it is really unlucky, but there's so many things that happen in rugby that that just is so natural. There's little things in games that just keep continuing to happen that just plays. So I don't think, to be honest, Jip, you could probably feel a little bit different here, but I just don't think Caleb could have done too much more around that. It's kind of he's going for a charge down, and it's a really tough one.
How realistic was the charge down? The distance away from the player, like, you'd have to really slow it down and work through. But I think where the difference will be is Caleb's not an intentional bloke. He doesn't have that malice in his game. So then it's when it gets to the judicial, I suppose, hearing, then you won't see 5 weeks or something. The red card may be seen as sufficient and he plays the next week, but it's like a warning, like, you've got to make better decisions so that you're not taking other players out. So I think that's where you'll see the differentiation, because a lot of people are like, oh, there's some vicious ones and then there's harmless ones like that, but both of them end in reds. But where they get extended is obviously the weeks that they may miss the games afterwards.
But just before we go on from that, Ross, I think it is really important that the refs are being consistent when it has come to the head. So even if it's from the shoulder or it's a swinging arm to the head, and that's your impact that you're having, it's a red card. So the fact that, you might think it's really unlucky and it's probably not a common red card that you would see, the fact that the hip has gone straight to their head, and he's probably, Wong's come off second best on that as well, and the fact that they've been consistent with their messaging around taking care of the head and player safety, and seeing a red card, I think it's a good call, and it was the right call. And you even hear the commentators as well; they were very, very clear around there. And so I think it is changing around the perception of red card offence to the head now. Whereas I probably think 2-3 years ago you might be thinking, what's he supposed to do there? What's he supposed to do there? Like, he can't move. But I think now with the kind of the messaging that the refs have been given to us, especially even us as players, we've got a really good understanding that if you're going anywhere near the head, whether it be a shoulder, which it commonly is, shoulder or swinging arm, it is a red card. But even on the weekend, if that happened to me or a guy in our team, and we knew that there was some force going towards the head, whatever body part it is, then we know that it's going to be a red card.
I think the best example on the weekend of mitigating circumstances, if you watch the Reds Brumbies game, the Reds blindside just absolutely flies in and takes Slipper's head out, basically shoulder directly to the head. He's red carded. Not too long after, Rob Valentini was done with a sidestep, and I think it was McDermott ducked, but he still copped him with a swinging arm to the head, but he was yellow carded because it was started at red with the head contact. Mitigating circumstances were there, clear and evident, so it brought it down to a yellow. And I think that's where you can see the framework working pretty clearly, and it actually makes it a lot easier for the refs to just make decisions.
As far as the players' decision making, I think the most interesting part of this is we're seeing multiple kinds of red cards for connection to the head. So, when we were talking a couple of years ago, and I think this has improved markedly, so it could be a good example of the time frame that it takes to fix one of these things. A couple of years ago, we were talking about people falling out of the air from, challenges under the high ball. We're not really seeing that anymore, but it took years for everyone to adapt to that, so we weren't seeing one every single game. But in this case, it's quite a different scenario because the contact to the head is happening as a player. In the case of Nepo Lalala, is being taken out around a ruck. Another time, there's a player falling into a tackle. Another time, there's a guy trying to charge down the ball. It's really hard to learn everyone's lessons across so many elements that could get a knock to the head that it feels like this is going to be something that's not going anywhere really quickly.
No, but it doesn't mean that we should give up on it because of the detrimental nature to our game and individuals that are out on the field. So I think it may take some time, but the more regular, I just think as a player, and Bryn, you'll be able to talk to this as well, the more regularly you see any contact to the head, you will be red carded, you'll start making better decisions. And I think the clean out is the biggest one. You mentioned Nepo, I mentioned the blindside from the Reds, sorry I don't know his name, but that was a clear decision to just go in and go hard, and that's probably been accepted in the past. But now that players are seeing reds, I think you will see an adjustment in those, I suppose those later cleans.
And some of them...
Just on that, Jip. Sorry, just on that, as players now, like we talk about it in our squad with our coaches, or whether it be leaders in our team talking around, like, if you put yourself in a position, like let's take aside Caleb Clark's example, which might happen in the future, but Nepolo Lala and Charlotte Klein and swinging arms that are coming towards the head. Now as a player that if you're going to put yourself in that position with bad technique, then you're going to force probably a red card. So, trying to get the technique right and understanding your tackle technique and doing that to the best of your ability. But subconsciously as well, we even think about it as well. It's like, if we get ourselves in a position that's like, oh man, I'm going to do a swinging arm or go on velocity, you better make sure that your technique's right. So, us as players, we feel that, especially in the Crusaders, we find that that it's been delivered, the messages have been delivered by the coaches, but then it's on us as players then to be able to try and rectify that through technique or understanding, and really, understanding what kind of tackle type or tackle selection we're going to have that week or whatever team we're playing.
Now, we watched that game with the Blues against MP, a few days after what was a much closer game. It was a bit of a blowout. It's a really tough time for Moana Pasifika right now. Like, they're about to go into another couple of quick turnaround games. 3 games in 8 days at this level is hard yakka.
Yeah, it is. But what I love about Moana Pasifika is that you speak to them, and I did the Tuesday game, and they're zoned in. That you can see they've created so much meaning in their environment that they're doing something for something greater than themselves, and they are energized by that, and they are hungry to bring joy to their supporters, and that's a big focus is their fans and their community, and I think you can see that in the way they play. Like, I know it was a bit of a blowout the next one, but they still do it with excitement and energy to the last minute, and that's what is going to hold them in good stead, because I see them as the uncoachable things. So the ticker and the willingness to go to the 80th minute every time, no matter the scoreboard, they're uncoachable. They'll get better as they go along, and I think now that they've had that victory against the Hurricanes, that they know they can do it. There is no what ifs anymore. They know they can do it if they can string performance together, and I still don't think they have around that discipline and turnover rates and set piece issues. So when they do sort of get all that together with their passion and their meaning they have in their environment, I think look out, because they've also faced 2 battles of COVID as well, earlier and then later as well. So their squad depth is being tested, but their players are standing up, I believe.
Yeah, but it's hard, Bryn, in that situation where you're playing that many games in that many days. They're going to have another 4-day turnaround in a couple of days' time after the game this weekend. It's difficult, no matter how good your culture is, no matter how much you're playing for. This is a slog, and in 2.5 weeks to play 5 games, you're not going to be, on the up at the end of that, are you? It's going to be hard.
No, look, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, Ross. But I think if you would have said at the start of the year, these guys want to have the opportunity to be able to play rugby, and sometimes we've even alluded to it last week that the preparation side is not great, and sometimes it is tough to back it up. But you get an opportunity to be able to go out and be able to just rectify things that you want to do. So I can imagine these short week turnarounds that they've had, it's pretty much would be just based around what they need to be able to fix and what they need to do, with a little bit of preview around their opponents. And look, honestly, that game was in the balance. It was 17-13 heading almost into half time, and then the Blues ended up scoring just for half time, and then a bit of their line out drive, being able to kind of win in the game with Kurdi scoring 3 tries off line out ball. But the thing that I've been enjoying about Moana Pasifika is the fact that they're playing for their people, and they're playing for a bigger purpose, like you said, Chip. And you can see it with the way they're playing. Whether when they're under pressure, and you can see the momentum's changing. You can see them geeing each other up and being able to pat on the backs and being able to bring that kind of expression and enthusiasm that they have with that group. Because look, a lot of it is a lot of young players that haven't been proven at this level. But we said that the Chiefs a couple of years ago, when they weren't, they were 0-8, and they were trying to bring in new guys that hadn't experienced Super Rugby. And now you look back in their time now to the present day, those 2 years of being able to work hard and being able to give those guys opportunities to be able to what it is at this level. It's only going to be beneficial in the long term. So I know as players, they'll, and probably the expectation being in the Super Rugby Aotearoa as well, conference for this first part of the year, it's a really hard learning curve. But like Jip said, they've got that win and they have that belief that they can do it, but they just need to be able to rectify a few things, whether it be, their discipline or set piece in certain times, and then winning moments and winning a lot of moments like they did in that Hurricanes game in the last minute, winning their game with Danny Tuala.
The Chiefs, they got away with it, but the Hurricanes came back strong in the end. It was out of reach, but what did you make of that game?
Yeah, look, I think it's the story of the Canes. They just don't go away. But I know, knowing their leadership group and their players, they'll be frustrated by that because they've seen what they can deliver in patches. But the Chiefs, I think Brad Weber nailed it. And I don't know if you saw the aftermatch speech, but he goes, that was a young Chiefs side that finished that game, and I sort of thought, what does he mean by that? But then I went back and looked, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty light on experience. Maybe Sam Kane out there, Bryn Gatz, but outside of that, it was pretty raw. So I think to get an away win is a great start. But there were a couple of things in the game that I liked, and it sort of happened in your game as well, Bryn, and we're seeing a shift in the defence of nines. And I don't know if it's the same in the Crusaders, but we saw it in the Six Nations with DuPont. I think we saw it with Nick White with the Wallabies. Faf de Klerk when Karevi scored down that right-hand side in the Rugby Championship. Leicester Whainuku went through Aaron Smith, who was a little bit wider out, and it almost was like he picked on him, and he's a big body, so. And then you're starting to see this, the shooter, Finlay Christie does it, and TJ Perenara on the weekend, flying out. And you sort of saw it in patches on the NEF tour by the All Blacks, specifically by those two guys. Is there a shift defensively? I just wanted to get your take on it, Bryn, as a nine. Is there a shift in defensive systems from that nine covering that kick space or slipping in closer to the ruck?
Yeah, it is. I think it's week to week really, and I think it's been a couple of years. Probably TJ and the Hurricanes have done it a lot. I think with the line speed pressure that they bring, Jip, TJ, and even obviously Finlay Christie does it as well. And then I think as well it's been able to marry up and get that balance right. You look at probably Brad Weber and the way he defends. I said he's slipping in the line quite a lot, kind of close to the ruck to be able to give that insurance on the outside to then be able to bring pressure out. But then, you look at some other teams, for ourselves, some weeks we might actually hold our line a little bit more to be able to help out on that short side for our big boys. So I think it's ever evolving, I think, Jip, and some teams are having different, shapes or setups for their defensive structures of how best to be able to use the nine. So I think moving forward, it might be a good opportunity to see, there might be actually teams that have been able to nullify that and seen that, if you've got a nine that's flying like TJ did off the weekend, and that's a trend that you're seeing, then the kick space in behind off 10, being able to get into that space because you've got two guys that are deep, covering that backfield space, especially on 50-22 opportunities. So I have looked at a lot of the nines, especially in New Zealand. There are different types of strengths and different types of structures that nines are having. So I think there are ways that you can try and nullify that, but I think for whatever the teams are deciding, they're just trying to use their nine in different ways to be able to put teams under pressure. Okay,
then I'll take it back to the preview. Was that just by chance Nuggie was there, or had you guys seen that, or did Leicester just read that on the fly?
There was no common pitches for us seeing that actually when we played the Highlanders, but then actually it was really good from David Havili in that moment, identifying. Because a lot of teams are running that kind of hitting the 12 wide off a maul. A lot of New Zealand, if you look at our viewers, you go watch any team at the moment off line-out strikes, everybody's hitting their 12 with being able to get manipulation animation off the 12. But Davey actually saw that Nuggie was defending on Leicester or in that kind of area. So we had a default move that we were going to go to, but heads-up play from Davey and Leicester seeing that Aaron was there. And then obviously Leicester went straight through there. So to answer your question, there was no preview around us seeing that. I think it was just a more of a heads-up play and great work from Davey and Leicester to recognise that obviously Aaron was in the line and is a little bit smaller than Leicester, so probably better off one-on-one with that opportunity. Outstanding game, Corey Evans, but David Havili just goes into the Form 15. That's outstanding. It's good to know, though, because you're watching that on screen and you almost think, like, I initially thought, they've previewed that. But to know that sort of stuff's decided on the fly, it does show
I mean, why David Havili gets so many raps internally from the Crusaders.
There was some stuff that went on the weekend from him as well, where you just had those little moments. I think it was a chip and chase in traffic and regather that went and then set up that try. And you were just like, how on earth did he get that from his foot over the top and regather with 4 dudes around him all at once? It was, what is this guy on?
It's almost like he just believes.
The biggest thing that I've really enjoyed about Dave, and it's probably his biggest strength that he especially brings in our environment, it's his try assist, or it's his assisting of other players and being able to make them look good. And so I'd hate to see actually what his try assist count is for the year. I think probably in his last 2 games he's been a massive for us around setting guys up or scoring himself. So it's a massive strength that Dave has, and look, we're hoping that he can continue to be able to do that. And so it does really help as an inside back as well, and our outsides. And when you've got a guy like that can make decisions on the go, but then being able to make other players look better, which is a really, really important trait to have as a 12.
I feel like hookers should be able to get a try assist on line-out drives these days. You know, if you don't get that line-out throw-in, you're not getting yourself a hat-trick, are you? Is that something that's been missing from the stats?
Tell you what, I seriously reckon if there's a tip to give, you'd have to multi up 2 hookers. You know, like, if you look at this weekend's game, you'd have to think the Brumbies and potentially the Crusaders hookers could get over, and if you multi them up, you could get good payback. But anyway, sorry, that's another chat for another day.
That's a big tip for the end of the show. Yeah, so the other thing about the Hurricanes Chiefs is we digress.
Yeah, sorry.
Jordy Barrett, second 5'8". There's been a lot of chat with him. That was his position as a young player. Then he moved back to fullback, said that, no, I am a fullback. Now he's playing at 12, and there was a lot of excitement because what's in the All Blacks midfield right now is a little bit unsure. We've seen a lot of chopping and changing, a lot of different quality players and different combinations. Did you like what you saw from Jordy Barrett?
Yeah, what I liked about him is, I suppose, his simplicity of decision making. Like, when he goes hard, he goes hard. You know, and he goes direct. And, you know, probably one time it didn't come off as when he ran into Sam Cane, but outside of that, he still gets good recycled ball. And he does run a good sort of inside line, weak shoulder, which would be if you were defending me. He runs on that down line that Bryn talks about to get a weak shoulder to be able to bring his offload game. And I suppose that's probably what he's likened to and has the ability to get to, is that Sonny Bill Williams offload link game. If he could then marry it up with what we're talking about with Davey, he could be definitely the complete package in time, but I still think he's got a hell of a lot to offer at 15. Like, man, when he's got time and space and he comes injecting himself into a line, he's still very, very exciting to watch there. But there's definitely room for him to, move there or get opportunity there at the next level.
He's a bloodthirsty character. He likes that hard.
He does, but then he has that delicate touch. Did you see that offload down? And he just subtly goes in between 2 bodies and just plants a beautiful offload for Wes Houston, who nearly chipped and chased and scored. He has the direct, but that's what I was saying. The simplicity in his decision making. He's really sharp, and it's instinctive. It's not pre-planned. A lot of the stuff it doesn't look that way anyway.
Is that where you'd like to see him in the future, Bryn?
Oh, it's tough because I tell you what, he wasn't bad at fullback last year. Well, I guess that's the strength that Jordy has. I think the ability that, he had a great year last year playing 15, and we know how tough he is defensively. There's so many times that I've seen him come in as that cover tackle and just snotting guys. I think of Lester Whainganuku the first time we played him down that sideline. Defensively, he's tough, and then his kicking game is unbelievable, whether it be through a contest ball or his long boot to be able to get you out of their dead ball line or the 22. He's a massive part of their kick structure at the Hurricanes when he's at 15. So, but I think if he does go to 12, I think it's important, if you think around the World Cup, that's the position that he wants to go in, and it's pretty important that probably the next, probably say that for the duration of the season, you want to have him at 12. Because if he has the ambitions to be able to play 12, then he's got to be able to get the kind of little nuances and the stuff that we're talking about with Davey, with time and saddle, and being able to understand defensive under pressure when you're under pressure as an attacker, but then also little subtle things of seeing what's in front of you, because it does take a little bit of time from going to 15 and seeing those pitches consistently every single day and knowing where you need to be and what's in front of you, to then being able to be in as a 12 and then being able to see it the game's a little bit different around what you're needing, helping out your 10 or marshalling or a little bit more game management around your forward shape and being able to get them set and seeing space in and around that hard defence or just outside, to the big boys, 5 or 6 defenders from the ruck. So I just think it does take time. But look, he's got all the attributes. I'll give you the tip. But he hasn't been that bad at fullback. He was probably one of the best New Zealand All Black players last year playing at fullback. So he's pretty blessed around having that kid playing.
Carrying on with this game and moving to the other team, you mentioned Bryn Gatland before as a closer and what he brought. That 50-22 was a huge moment in that game.
That's why he's nicknamed Clutch.
Yeah.
He just goes for it. He was all in. The chips were all in, but man, that was telling. And it put them in such a strong position to finish that game out. And it was off the back of a turnover, I think, just before the penalty to get them there, and then to get that was just, it sealed it really, didn't it? And that was, I even messaged after the game. I just said, man, that was ballsy. Like, it could have been out on the full. I know they had the advantage and it would have gone back, but still a lot of courage to pull that off.
Yeah, it was a hell of a play, especially when you look at the change of styles, because Josh Moana was really strong. Apart from, I think there was one early error. Apart from that, he was really good, Bryn.
Yeah, he was. And look, he's an All Black for a reason. And I think the shape that the Chiefs have is set up perfectly for Joshy. If they get that really lightning quick ball that the Chiefs have been doing pretty well this year, and you're having the forward runners off Josh, I think early on in that game for that first try, his ability to be able to take it to the line and then offload, that's the DNA, which I see in Josh when he's playing at his best when he played for the All Blacks. It's that ability to really test yourself at the line. And, we've seen that in spades with Brynner this year. So, you talk around depth and having that kind of 1-2 combo. Both of them marry out really, really nicely. But I think one thing that I did enjoy from the Chiefs that they did really, really well on the weekend, Chip, and maybe you saw this as well, but their face play shape on the edge when they scored 2 crucial tries due when they were running their attack. And we know how hard it is if you look at the Hurricanes and how they defend when they get high with their wingers trying to cut off with that line speed. Their ability to be able to have those downline runners to be able to manipulate and get to the space, then be able to score tries, I think was a massive telling in their game, because as an attacker, we know how hard it is when you've got line speed pressure under you consistently. And the Hurricanes are probably the most aggressive team in the comp, really putting your skill set under pressure. But I thought that the backs and the loose forwards that were out there, especially Samoa Kula, the loose forwards and the backs today took some really nice options and been able to ask really good questions of that kind of edge defence of the Hurricanes, where they let in a few tries and scored. Chase Tiatia's try, within the 61st minute was probably a telling try to be able to put it away to 30-15, even though the Hurricanes come back and almost win the game. So that's probably the positive with the Hurricanes, is that not only against us, they scored 3 tries in the last 20 minutes. They scored 2 tries against the Blues to finish. Then they scored another 2 on the weekend with the Chiefs. So, like you said, Jip, they're a team that just doesn't go away. But you'd probably like to think if they can get that kind of attitude shift in the first 40 or the first 60, and then they don't have to chase the game that they have been in a couple of these derbies this year.
Yeah, and I think about that edge attack, a couple of times they had that relieving option to go out the back to, I think the rover was Quinn on one of the flanks, and I can't remember who was on the other side. And against the Hurricanes, that's so crucial, isn't it? If they do rush you and put pressure on those bodies in front. And even, to be honest, like Jordy absolutely hit Gats before Chase Tiatia's try, and he just gets it away, and that created that opportunity. So there's a lot to like about their short side attack. But I agree, the Hurricanes had opportunities, but due to Angus having such a great day at scrum time, he marched a few penalties and marched them out of trouble a little bit. So if they can nail down set piece, I know they've had their injuries, and get a bit more consistency there for the Canes in that tight 5, I think they'll start winning more games than not.
Should we jump over the Tasman now? I think the most jaw-dropping thing in that Reds-Brumbies game was Hunter Paisami once again just destroying someone.
Mate,
that guy.
He doesn't miss.
No.
Talk about simplicity and decision making. It's direct and straight, and he doesn't give them time to get the ball away. And if they do, it's an error. So it's actually a growth. You probably have to credit him a little bit, Bryn. Like a number of times last season, at Super Rugby level and international level, he would fly out, and it would put his team under pressure. but it's almost like he's got that, zoom, cruise, zoom, right? Like he really zooms off the line, then he cruises to make his decision and then goes. And the opposition, don't have time to decide. And I think that's been a real growth in this game. And he's always been a hitman. We absolutely know that. But what he's got right now is his foot speed, before the launch and then post as well.
Nick White's ears are still ringing.
There's a few players the last few weeks.
Sorry, Joe. He, like you talked around how you talk around the learnings and you talk around the fact that it's been able to hit and stick, because as you know, in defensive structures, if you are going to go make a read and being able to put yourself in a line where it's it's all or nothing, and getting that right, very similar to actually Malakai Fekitoa, I think, Joe. Early years of him playing with when he was in New Zealand, having that ability to really, because it takes actually a bit of good understanding around defensive structures, being able to get your timing right to then go out and actually have a look at it. And Malakai, I remember when he was in New Zealand, did that really, really well, and it's great to see Hunter Paisami being able to make those little improvements in his game that isn't putting his team under pressure, where he's actually making a positive play, and it's having massive dividends for the Reds in that that win on the weekend.
The Waratahs, Bryn, they got a big win on the weekend over the Drua. Probably the best thing to see there was that Michael Hooper was on the bench, and he's back in footy, because they're a different team with Michael Hooper, aren't they?
Oh, look, we talk of praises of Hooper every single time we play Chip, don't we? Just how impressive 100%. He is as a player, and what he brings to that Australian group, and what he's going to bring to that Waratahs group. And if you're talking around the most improved team of the year, you probably have to say the Waratahs are right up there. They've lost the two games, probably the two form Australian teams in that conference with the Brumbies and the Reds. But other than that, they've won their games that they're supposed to. And probably last year, a lot of these games they probably would have lost. And so if you're talking around improvement, and anytime you can bring a guy like Michael Hooper into the environment to be able to uplift that group and bring whether it be a training or on the field, the Waratahs have come in massively in leaps and bounds around where they were last year. And, it's probably great to see anytime you can do that as a group, to be able to go from, you look at the Chiefs previously, they went to that 0-8 start and then were able to improve. It's great to see the improvement that the Waratahs have made in the first part of the Super Rugby Pacific.
I think Hooper's not only important to their pack in providing good front foot ball, but it's almost the stuff throughout the week that he'll bring and he'll galvanise that group. But I think he'll be the key to unlocking Fukeri and Peresi. I genuinely do. I don't think we've seen the best of them yet. We know their potential, but if they can start getting some front foot ball, and they have, we know how good Hooper is at that roving line in and around that midfield, it may start creating opportunities for them and or Hooper to do what we're used to seeing him do. So he's a key inclusion back in that TARS side for the rest of the season, finals included.
Brent, a few weeks ago we were talking about the Drua and how they were really coming good. There'd been a couple of games they'd got a win, they were really close in another game. Now after 3 weeks in a row with losses, assistant coach Brad Harris has come out and said they need to learn more quickly. This is the roller coaster ride of being a brand new team, is it?
Oh, it is. It's exactly like the Moana Pasifika. Being able to have the learnings in an environment that's small margin of errors really is which costs you games. And you were talking about consistently about moments, and the more moments you can win in games, the more times you're going to win. So whether it's through discipline or whether it be through set piece or skill execution and game moments where you need them and to be able to be on. It's little things like that the teams that have been here for since the start have had those experiences and those understandings, and players that have been in games and been in scenarios and understanding what it looks like every single week. So they're a new team, and you're going to go through your teething problems, and I guess for them it's being able to do that consistently in games. So how do you do that? You try to get your preview right, get your prep right through the week, get your training and your learnings, and being able to adapt with what you want to rectify from what the mistakes were previously, and then you just try to go out there and you be able to try and execute what you need to. And so very similar to Moana Pasifika. There's going to be just a few teething problems, but I think no doubt that group are just trying to pick out whether it be just trends for the week that they want to fix for their week, and then being able to then go out on the field and not make make them not so cluttered or thinking about too many things, and being able to say like we need to do this and that. It might just be a common trend that they want to focus on for that week, or one or two things, and then worry about themselves around how they can execute their game plan or whatever they're trying to do within their week, who they play.
I think that's key. I think just, we sort of spoke about it for Moana Pasifika a few weeks ago, just focus on themselves and they'll come out the other side and they had that win. But I think secondly is their ability to learn from frustrating situation or desperate situations. And what I mean by that, they let themselves down at times because they're so eager to make a play or desperate to make a play that they're giving away a yellow card or a reckless penalty. And it just puts them under further pressure. So it's about, I suppose, as I've said before, it's hard in terms of the experience because they haven't had it yet, but they're having some, games in a row now where they're experiencing that, so they have to learn from that. And they have to be able to control their temperament in those situations.
Okay, well, let's finish off with a few picks, for the weekend ahead. Let's have a look at what we've got coming up. We've got the Highlanders v Moana Pasifika. Bryn, start there. Where do you see this one going?
Oh, look, I think Aaron Major would be hoping for a win against his old team. But I think the Highlanders. I think, look, we've talked around the execution, and then probably that's been their Achilles heel, being able to not score points when they need to. They've had so many opportunities on the weekend, especially their last 20 minutes, and I think they're going to get it right this weekend, and it'll be their first one this year.
Highlanders at home.
Highlanders at home.
Yep.
Not far away. That's good. Tony Brown will get a nice smile on his face. He's been waiting. Force Rebels.
Force.
Force.
Don't even
I thought about the Rebels.
Yeah.
I thought about the Rebels, man. But no, I'm going to go with Force.
They haven't seen your club membership yet?
Sadly, no. Just memes.
Yeah.
Just memes. You're copying some memes, are you?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry. I don't need any. I was just trying to just laughing.
Hurricanes versus Crusaders, Bryn.
Crusaders.
Crusaders.
Chiefs Blues.
Blues.
Where's that been played?
Hamilton.
Good test for the Blues, I think. It's coming at a really good time, Jip, I think, for the Blues. I'll go for the Blues. They've gone 5 in a row. It's always a tough game watching that one.
It'll be a good game.
Oh, can't wait. It's a good afternoon.
Yeah.
Canes, Crusaders, and then a Blues, Chiefs.
That is a good afternoon of footy. There's only one place you're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to be on that game?
No. I'll be on the couch enjoying it as a viewer.
All right. Yes.
Sorry.
Fan.
I'm going to change. I'm going to change my pick. I'm going to go to the Chiefs.
Yes, why?
Because he's just remembered I picked the Chiefs down in Christchurch.
I'm just going. I'm just going. I'm just got a feel. Just got a feeling in my gut.
You got a gut. There we go. I like it. The Drua versus the Brumbies.
Brumbies.
And I think, we've got one more game to follow after that. I suppose let's look at Tuesday maybe as well. The Hurricanes versus Moana Pasifika in that Tuesday game, which is, 4-day turnaround for one of the teams and a 3-day turnaround for the other. That's really rough, but they're going to use the Hell squad, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the Hurricanes will be fired up for this. They'll be wanting to right a few wrongs, but, hopefully there's a full squad to pick from for Moana Pasifika as well. So it should be a doozy, but I'll go the Canes.
Yeah, I think they'll be right on edge for this game with obviously what happened not too long ago. So, I'll go Hurricanes.
Cool. Classic encounter at Sky Stadium. Thank you both, especially you, Bryn, coming in when Dan Carter, left us. We had to bring you off the bench. But, happy to bring you on. It's done well.
Good on you, Brenner.
No problem, guys. I was gutted. I'd have loved to have seen him. Such a good-looking man. Just gutted wasn't
sounds like you've asked him enough questions in your lifetime.
I think it was.
That's why I was going to try. And I need to do it in a professional way. Didn't get the chance, so not bad.
Why don't we repeat the same question that he asked Dan back to him? Who's the most famous person that you've ever encountered?
Nah, mate. I'm a nobody, mate. Just teammates. I wouldn't even know.
Dan
I haven't had anybody off the top of my head. I'm just thinking about Dan Carter and all the people that he's seen.
Yeah.
Awesome, hey. Well, thank you once again, Bryn Hall. Good luck this weekend as ever. Go well. James Parsons, another great show. Looking forward to another one next week. And thank you all for tuning in once again to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Catch all the action on Sky Sport, all the analysis on rugbypass.com.